Well, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to the Secretary of Defense presentation of the coveted Freedom Award. Again, my name is Tim Lambert, and I will serve as your MC this afternoon. On behalf of the Department of Defense and the Florida Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve Committee, ESGR, I would like to thank you for attending this ceremony to help us honor an exceptional employer. Today's event is hosted by the Florida ESGR Committee, which consists of volunteers who gain and maintain support from all public and private employers for the men and women who serve in the National Guard and Reserve and help defend this great nation. I would also like to welcome the attendees who may be joining us virtually since this event is being live streamed. At this time, I'd ask that you please turn off and silence any electronic devices that you have. Make sure mine's off. Okay, I'm good to go. I assume everybody else is. Outstanding. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presentation of the colors by the University of Florida Army ROTC Detachment.
March time. March. Right, baby. Hold. Post. Reset. Arms. Order. Arms. Post. March time. March. Left. Forward. March.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing as Captain Drummond comes forward with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Tim. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we have a round of applause for our color guard and Captain Drummond. Please be seated. At this time, it is my pleasure to recognize our distinguished guests that are with us this afternoon. Please hold your applause until I have finished reading their names. First, I'd like to recognize Mr. Ron Bogle, National Chair, Department of Defense, ESGR. Brigadier General Sean Boyette, Director of the Joint Staff, Joint Forces Headquarters, Florida National Guard. Chief Master Sergeant Jana Rodberg, United States Air Force, Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Director, Defense Support Service Center, Department of Defense. Ms. Rita Broadway, Chair, Florida Committee, Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. Mr. Matt Pinkerson, Vice President and Regional Manager and Department of Defense Patriot Award recipient with Charles Perry Partners. Mr. Vinny Moreshi, Executive Vice President, Principal, Charles Perry Partners. please join me in a round of applause for our special guest. You know, ladies and gentlemen, the military is built on traditions and customs. I'd like to introduce Rob Lawrence, who is the Military Outreach Director for the Florida ESGR State Committee. And he's going to share with you a very, very important military tradition. Rob?
As we begin the festivities this evening, as Tim said, it's customary and it's right that we pause to remember those who cannot be with us. I call your attention to this table, which occupies a place of honor here in the front. It's set for only one, symbolizing the fact that members of our armed forces, including POWs, MIAs, and other comrades in arms, are missing from our ranks. They are unable to be with us or their loved ones tonight, so we join with them in this honorable tribute. This table, for one, is small, symbolizing the frailty of one person alone against an army of their suppressors. A single red rose in the base tied with a yellow ribbon reminds us of the family and friends of our missing comrades in arms who keep the faith while awaiting their return. A lone slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the fallen comrades' tears of families and friends as they wait. The glass is inverted as they cannot toast with us tonight. And the chair is empty. They are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope, which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home into the arms of their loved ones and to a grateful nation. I ask for a moment of silence. Let us always remember.
Thank you, Rob. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce our state chair, Rita Broadway. Ms. Broadway will make general remarks about ESGR and the Freedom Award.
Thank you, Tim.
Yes, ma'am.
What a great Chamber of Commerce day in Florida. Together with some traffic that I understand is pretty typical for Gainesville, which is why we started a little bit late. One of our attendees was challenged by the traffic in this area, but I really want to thank all of you for coming, and thank you, Rob, for that great ceremony that really reminds us all of what we do, and why we do it, and why we're here to do a great presentation this afternoon. I want to thank everybody who's here to support CPPI and Captain Drummond, and to recognize CPPI for their outstanding support of their employees who also serve in the Reserve and the National Guard as they pursue two careers, both a civilian career and a military career. And sometimes that's not easy to balance the two. The service members and their families sometimes find themselves continually having to navigate their military duty and their civilian work schedule. And let us not forget that they've got to figure out how to have family time. And oh, by the way, let's see if we can't squeeze in a few hobbies as well. This can be especially challenging for the service member and their family if the employers are not totally supportive. And so they're trying to navigate annual trainings that sometimes take them away for 3 or 4 weeks. When it used to be years and years ago, 2 weeks in the summer and 1 weekend a month. We all know that is not the way that our Reserve and National Guard serve us today. And so as the military has transformed the way our military and our Reserve and National Guard serve, we've also transformed the way employers have to adapt to those training schedules as well. And that's not an easy thing to do. Sometimes the service member may find themselves at odds with their employer, and they have to make a tough decision. And we in ESGR want to make sure that service members and employers don't have to make those tough decisions. We want to make sure that we spread the word about great employers, that we help employers become great employers so that they can serve their employees and the Reserve and National Guard. And something we also have to remember, it's not just the leadership of the organizations and the employers that are part of this award. It's the colleagues. It's the coworkers of Captain Drummond who had to take up the additional workload, who had to adjust their schedules so that he was able to do what he is doing. Our speakers today are going to help us recognize CPPI. Mr. Bogle, the national chair, will address ESGR's role in our nation's defense and how CPPI's achievements made them stand out in over several thousand nominees for the Freedom Award. General Boyette with the Florida National Guard is representing the many National Guard and Reserve service members here in Florida and throughout the country that benefit from the generosity and understanding of great employers like CPPI as we continue to serve our country. And of course, we're going to hear from Captain Drummond, who started this whole process well over a year ago, and will explain what his motivation was to nominate CPPI and why it has meant so much to him and his family for the great support that you have provided to him. I would now like to introduce the National Chair for ESGR, Ron Bogle. Mr. Bogle is a volunteer like the rest of us. We in ESGR who serve and spread the word about employers and the great work that you all do, we're all volunteers. We do this because we love it and we know that we're making a difference in people's lives. Before he became the national chair, he served as the state chair for North Carolina. Every state in the union has an ESGR committee, and he still resides in North Carolina. He served in the Army and is a veteran of the Vietnam War. A retired North Carolina Superior Court judge, Mr. Bogle continues his lifelong public service to this country through ESGR, but also in his efforts to reduce underage drinking and drug abuse. So, sir, we are very thankful and grateful for your leadership and so glad that you were able to join us today. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ron Bogle.
Thank you, General Broadway, for those kind remarks. And I want to say to you on behalf of Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve, and myself as National Chair of Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve, it is a great honor for me to have the opportunity to be here with you today to recognize a great American company. And if you'll indulge me for a moment, I want to take a little roll back in history to tell you why we're here in the first place. In the shadow of the Vietnam War, the Congress of the United States made a decision to eliminate future military draft. In doing so, they've created a problem about maintaining proper support. We knew that we could not have a standing military economically that would be sufficient to meet the satisfactory and anticipated future needs of this nation in its defense. And so where they looked in order to backfill that loss of strength was to know that that burden for the defense of the nation could best be restored to the National Guard and to the reserve component forces, because they've been trained for years and years and years to fight those battles. And so as a result, they understood, though, that when you transfer the demands of that service to the Guard and Reserve, it didn't just impact the service member. It didn't just impact the service member's family. It also impacted the nation's employers. And the nation's employers, as we've learned in this country, are not reluctant about expressing either their pleasure or displeasure about things that inconvenience their business, because after all, their business is business, and we salute them for that. But in doing so, ESGR was created 50 years ago. This past June, we celebrated our 50th anniversary at the Pentagon to celebrate our work, and now we're laboring forward in our 51st year of service to the nation, and more specifically targeted toward our service members. But not only the service members, we are equally dedicated to the support of our nation's employers. And I can tell you that in the 50 years of seeing ESGR and its accomplishments with our nation's employers, I can tell you that hundreds and hundreds of thousands of our nation's employers have been outreached by the ESGR. And part of our outreach is to do recognition awards. And we have a level of recognition awards, beginning with the Patriot Award and ending with the ultimate achievement, which is the presentation of the Secretary of Defense Employer Support Freedom Award. It is the highest single award given by this nation to an employer for their support of the Guard and Reserve, their Guard and Reserve employees. And if you think about it, we live in a nation where there are millions and millions of employers, large, small, public, and our responsibility with ESGR is to outreach each and every one of them. We haven't gotten them all, but we're still trudging along because we are a volunteer organization that's composed of about 3,000 volunteers at this point, representing 54 separate committees who are continuously looking out to outreach to our nation's employers. And we've seen, as General Broadway mentioned, I'm a veteran of the Vietnam War, and I can tell you for certain that there was great doubt in this country about whether this experiment in democracy to eliminate the military draft and transfer that authority and that ability to fight the nation's wars would be successful. There were doubters, doubters within the Defense Department, doubters within the public, doubters within the Congress. But we've seen many years later that the support of the Guard and Reserve is critical to the success and the defense of our nation. There is no degrees of separation, in my mind, between the active component and the reserve, Guard and Reserve component. They're truly highly skilled, professionally trained, and well-led, which is exactly what we want our military forces to be. And our Guard and Reserve has performed with great success. And we want our employers to know that not only are they important, they're important to the military families, and they're important to the retention of our members of the Guard and Reserve in continuing to serve, because they have to make choices. As General Broadway said, they're supporting families, and they're supporting careers, two separate careers, and they're having to make choices. So it's important for their employers to support their Guard and Reserve force. And our mission with ESGR is to outreach to our nation's employers and try to cultivate a culture in which our nation's employers value the hiring of the men and women who put on that uniform and serve in the nation's Guard and Reserve, and also support their service at the same time. So we've seen an extraordinary change that's happened in the United States of America with regard to employer support. And I'm not going to say that ESGR is responsible for all of that success, but I am going to say this, that ESGR has been a primary player in the change in attitudes in America's labor force. And someone asked me not long ago if I was retired. And I told them, as an ESGR volunteer, I'm retired only from earning money. But the reward of being an ESGR volunteer is the value itself of what it brings to me. And I think I speak on behalf of all 3,000 of our ESGR volunteers. It's the value of being able to stand in support of these men and women who put on that uniform and stand in support of the nation. So I have a feeling, I never met Charles Perry, but I have a feeling that Charles Perry is looking down on this event with some sense of great pride to know that this business that he started in 1964 and carried with him his own personal experiences about the military experience and the value of military people and the people who serve, I've got to feel like that he's taking some sense of accomplishment about that. And with the new generations of leadership that have come along, they've refined that support and expanded that support, which is the ideal. So I salute Charles Perry in his absence. He's created a great organization, and he is creating an organization that stands strongly for its men and women who serve in the nation's Guard and Reserve. So if you consider, we've been presenting the Freedom Award for 25 years. We're now in the 26th year of the Freedom Award. And at that time, there are 340 businesses that have been selected as a Freedom Award recipient. 340. There have been countless thousands and thousands who have been nominated. 15 are selected each year. These are the best of the best. So on behalf of ESGR and with the thanks of and support of the Secretary of Defense, I want to thank CPPI for their extraordinary representation and the extraordinary support that they provide for their men and women serving in the nation's Guard and Reserve. So Tim, having said that, I'll sit down and shut up.
Thank you, Mr. Bogle. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you again to our speaker, Brigadier General Sean Boyette. General Boyette is the Director of the Joint Staff at Joint Force Headquarters, Florida National Guard in St. Augustine. General Boyette proudly enlisted in the Florida Army National Guard on December 29th, 1992, and has served as a traditional guardsman ever since. General Boyette entered the Florida Officer Candidate School in 1997 and was commissioned a second lieutenant in 1998. He received his undergraduate degree from Ringling School of Art and Design in Sarasota, Florida, where he graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Computer Animation and with a minor in photography. He also received his graduate degree from Nova Southeastern University, where he graduated with a Master of Science in Information Systems. And the general is also a graduate of the United States Army War College, where he earned another master's degree in strategic studies. General Boyette has served in numerous command and leadership positions, from platoon leader to brigade commander. General Boyette's military awards and decorations include the Bronze Star Medal, the Meritorious Service Medal with 1 silver oak leaf, the Army Commendation Medal, the Iraq Campaign Medal with 2 Bronze Star devices, the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, the Combat Action Badge, the Basic Space Badge, the Israeli Air Defense Tactical Operations Badge, and holds the Ancient and Honorable Order of St. Barbara. There are many, many more awards listed in the general's bio, I can assure you. General Boyette also has a very accomplished civilian career. His focus is on leadership for technology and solutions delivery. He worked as a software engineer for IBM, and he has been serving as a technology leader with PricewaterhouseCoopers LLC for nearly 25 years. General Boyette is currently serving Pricewaterhouse as a senior director, leading their global IT operations and monitoring organization. General Boyette is married to Sally of Tampa, Florida. They have 3 children, Daniel, Gabrielle, and Sophia, and they reside in Tampa, Florida. Please help me welcome General Boyette.
That is a quick way to say that I'm very old, but thanks, Tim. The one thing that I will say is that experience comes with a unique perspective. What Tim mentioned is I too am a traditional soldier, and I too have an employer. I too have never seen one of these in person. So just a quick round of applause to CPPI for the pride of your organization for women. Tim, thank you for your kind words. Thanks for the opportunity for me to speak and be here today. Good afternoon. And allow me to provide my perspective and represent the Florida Air and Army National Guard and talk to you and tell us the story about what we have done in support of defending your freedom and protecting the pillars of democracy over the past year, all as volunteers. And I share the story so that you understand each of those service members, each of those airmen, airwomen provide and work for another company, all competing for what you have earned today. As again mentioned, my name is Sean Boyette, Brigadier General. I'm the Director of Joint Staff. I represent the great soldiers and airmen from our headquarters out of St. Augustine, Florida. I've been a guardsman, as mentioned before, a traditional guardsman. I have another employee as well for nearly 30 years, and I'm honored to represent the 12,000 soldiers and airmen here today. The Florida National Guard senior leaders continue to represent our formation and represent each and every one of you through a variety of assignments throughout the globe. We're currently led by our fearless leader, General Eifert. General Brian Simpler is out of Colorado, an Air National Guardsman, mobilized in the combatant command as the Deputy Combatant Commander out of NORAD. General Haas, you may have read, he's currently our Army ATAC, has just been announced by Governor DeSantis as our new Adjutant General. My colleague, Brigadier General Mike Vei, serves as the Air ATAC, that's the Senior Air Leader for nearly 2,000 airmen, as well as the largest wing in the entire United States. Another battle buddy, Bob Crothers, Brigadier General, serves as the Army Deputy Commander, presiding command and control over nearly 10,000 service members in the Army National Guard, over 4 brigade-size elements of about 2,000 to 3,000 soldiers each. Out of our 4 major subordinate or brigade-size elements, that's about 2,000 to 3,000, even 4,000 soldiers, and the nation's largest air wing, we've deployed and redeployed dozens of units and thousands of soldiers and airmen from our great state to augment and support federal missions all over the world. Some of these include the headquarters of the 53rd IBCT, that's our largest brigade-size element, about 4,500 soldiers. They were deployed in EUCOM, directly training and assisting key strategic nations throughout Europe, including the Ukrainian Army. The 164th Air Defense Artillery and its MPs have been deployed nearly 10 times over the past 10 years in both the brigade-size deployment as well as a battalion supporting both our nation's capital region, protecting our pillars of democracy, as well as providing air defense assets throughout Europe. 3rd Battalion Air Defense Artillery is deploying tomorrow, providing key air defense assets throughout the European theater for our strategic partners. We've had multiple battalions of our 124th Infantry deploy. The MP and military intelligence battalions of the 260th have deployed. Our finance detachment has deployed. Our band has deployed. The Joint Force and Communication Support Squadron has deployed. The 202nd Red Horse, the Rapid Engineer Deployable Heavy Operations Repair Squadron has deployed, amongst many, many other soldiers and airmen. I share this with you to put in perspective how many soldiers are doing work to protect your freedom. In all, we have federally deployed over 30,000 soldiers and airmen since 9/11. And we will deploy over 1,000 soldiers and airmen over the next year. Each soldier, each airman, all of them are volunteer service members. Each of them have other jobs, with the majority having other opportunities and roles, not only in their civilian employers, but their communities. These include doctors, they include lawyers, infrastructure leaders, fire rescue, retail salesmen and women, sales, infrastructure support, you name it. The service army, the airmen and soldiers are doing it today. They're indirectly or directly working for partners and family community-led industries such as CPPI. They're demonstrating their ability to build long-lasting relationships and structures, and they're able to do so because of companies and partners like yourselves. The structure of American freedom throughout the support of our Guard and their Guard formations can only be accomplished because of you. Our most monumental contribution over the past year, outside augmenting our Compo 1 or active duty brethren, as if you're probably aware, Hurricane Ian in September. I can't possibly overstate the extraordinary planning and preparation by our leaders, our soldiers, and more importantly, the support from our employers at all levels of command, including multiple state and national partners. I had the personal experience and pleasure or opportunity to lead that effort and lead that formation during that event. Proud of each and every airman and each and every soldier who left their family, they left their friends during a time of need, and they left their employers during that time of need to head into harm's way to support their fellow citizens. Through collaboration with other states, through collaboration with NORTHCOM, NGB, local, state, and federal officials, we brought about the largest muster ever of our citizen soldiers in Florida and an unparalleled array of forces to preserve life and property. This includes nearly 11,000 service members. Every soldier and airman in Florida was deployed. Everyone left their civilian employee. Everyone left their family. We supported and assisted in shelters in all the impacted areas, to include some here in Gainesville. We provided L&Os in all impacted areas. We operated over 80 points of distribution where we were able to provide food and water in all the impacted counties to citizens who could not get it for themselves. We've conducted security missions in many critically impacted counties, performing many airlift, search and rescue, commodity delivery flights or sorties, using some outstanding flight platforms such as the UH-72, the UH-60, and the UH-47. Among many other critical requirements defined by our local and state government for the key islands, as well as all the other impacted areas. Aviation was the hero of that particular effort, and multiple services, components, and Coast Guard provided air mobility, search and rescue, medevac, and thousands of fixed wing and rotary wing sorties, all conducted by volunteer service members, all leaving their civilian employ. After Hurricane Ian, we quickly transitioned and doing some migration support for DHS. Our EMAC planners are regarded as the best in the nation, and they essentially built the initial EMAC or partnering with other states' plan. We have other accomplishments, many more I'm extremely proud of, but won't bore you with the details, but I will provide some highlights, some things to look forward to that Florida is going to lead the way. If you're not aware, we're going to be getting F-35s. Our wing asset and the largest wing in the States will be moving to this next generation fighter in order to continue its federal mission. If you're not impressed with the F-35, I'm not sure we can impress you. We're hopeful to compete for the first wave of maneuver short-range air defense. This is a Stryker platform that allows us to be more lethal on the battlefield. We're continually enhancing and updating both our HIMARS, you might have seen it in the news, and our 777 or field artillery capabilities. Our cyber teams continue to train with local and state officials and have been sought after to provide their subject matter experience and expertise. Camp Blanding, in addition to providing the premier training environment and facility for our troops, hosted numerous high-level events and senior officials. The 1218th, or the Transportation Company of the 50th RSG, was recently presented the National Defense Transportation Association Unit of the Year Award. I share all this with you because each and every one of those events was done by a soldier who had to leave their employ. To put it in perspective, the pride, the culture that you establish as CPPI allows you to earn this particular award. And again, let's give yourselves a round of applause for what you've done today.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now make the presentation of the 2022 Secretary of Defense Employer Support Freedom Award. Captain Drummond would like to make a few remarks.
Sir, that is quite a tough speech to follow up. I like to go over the timeline about how this happened. So 2018, I was 3 years already at CPPI, and a school came up that the military offered me. I said, ooh, a school. I said, I'm on a project. And then I looked at the school, and the curriculum was spot on for what I was going to need in my civilian world with working with them 360. So whenever that happened, they executives here and my supervisors sat down immediately and said, okay, what do we have to do? And that was one of the key points in my nomination. So I believe in personal and professional investment in your employees. And I was able to see that over several years. And I want to read to you the chances of how we got here. So there was 2,700 nominations. 15 made it. It's a 5,000th chance of us being here today. And that was pretty impressive to me. There's 340 over 26 years. Now I'd like to read a couple of key highlights from the nomination. Being a dual career soldier, as you said, ma'am, could very easily be considered a burden on an employer because we do have to leave once a month for a weekend. We do have 2 weeks in the summer, and especially in construction, you're on a project. So it's not easy to just get up and leave. It takes coordination. It takes people covering down on you. It takes knowing the processes and procedures. CPPI recognized this, and they saw leadership, process management, and trooper leading procedures that allowed me to not only hold a career, but hold a military career as well. I think as time goes on, a civilian career becomes more difficult, and the military may become a hindrance or vice versa. And that didn't happen to me, and that's why I felt so strongly and right in the nomination. So whenever COVID happened, most of my state was activated. And again, I had about 2 weeks, and I said, Matt, help me. I've got 2 weeks. The whole state's been activated. And unfortunately, that came over Christmas. So I'd like to thank Kim and Chris Hagan. I don't see her here, but they actually took my children and took photos of Miss Nancy Perry and sent me the photos. And being deployed or activated, and your employer going that extra mile to make sure that your wife and your children had a present at the table and had photos. It was a big key, and it actually filled up a whole page of the 2,500 words in the nomination, over 6 pages. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Kim. Miss Nancy isn't here, but thank you, Chris. I also like to point out, Kim even offered to watch my kids several times while I was away. To conclude, I appreciate efforts by CPPI. I appreciate the family. I appreciate my military supervisor, Major Wall, as well as my civilian advisor, Matt. I appreciate it. I spent several weeks writing the nomination. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you to Tiffany for putting all this together. And Tim, I would get a call from Tim about every 3 months and tell me where we were in the process, and it was super exciting. But whenever you have 2,800 nominations, at 5,000 chances is pretty rough. So I'd like to end with my last few sentences from my nomination. It said, my supervisor, Matt, was awarded the 7 SEALs Award. He has been the one to help me for most of my military civilian coordination after 2019. That was several years of, hey, I have a weekend, I had a late flight, got canceled, I have to stay overnight. So it matters whenever you're the one on the project, and understanding and coordination and covering down as a family. It matters a lot, and it sets the bar. Although the Patriot Awards are supervisor based, they reflect the executive level and the company mentors down the chain of command all the way to me. So this award is for the entire company. It's not just for one supervisor. It's the other project managers that would cover down. It's the other project coordinators that help submittals because I was out on a Friday. Not everyone takes the time to write awards for their supervisors or for those who should receive one, often go without. A person to feel is important to take the time to recognize people and companies. I'm thankful that there's an organization out there such as ESGR to give me that opportunity. Matt, you have a few words?
I don't know how I ended up here today. This is to even have the opportunity to share this podium with such the history and the commitment to volunteerism is, it makes me very proud. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you for being a volunteer, giving your time so freely, having so much passion for your service, and for giving us this opportunity to get together today. So thank you very much. Let me give them a round of applause. So it's not very often that I'm left speechless, as the people I work with can attest. But I know that I can say that I am humbled, and we as a company are very honored to receive this award. When we started this process and Donald kind of shared what this was, I don't think we as a civilian entity really understood the gravity and the magnitude of what this represents. And through the process, and even a little bit today, we've learned how important this is. And I'm lacking the words to express the gratitude and the pride that I know that we have to proudly display this in perpetuity. So thank you all very much. We are very honored to be here, and thank you, Donald, for taking time to recognize not only myself, but CPPI and all of the individuals. You know, we take pride in making this a family organization, and you deserved it. So you made it very easy on all of us. So whenever you're really ready to give civilian life a try, you can come on back. All right.
Thank you, man.
All right.
Thank you. At this time, I'd ask that Mr. Bogle, General Boyette, and Ms. Broadway, would you please come forward for the presentation? Somewhat awkward. Let me very quickly read this plaque.
Oh, he's gonna make you hold that.
Put it down.
Smart move, sir.
Put it down,
Good job, Tim.
Mr. Bogle.
You wanted to see a squirm.
Yeah. Let me share this with you. This reads, Secretary of Defense Employer Support Freedom Award, 2022 recipient, Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve honors Charles Perry Partners Incorporated in recognition of exemplary support of National Guard and Reserve member employees. Signed, Robert Hill, Captain, United States Navy, Executive Director, and signed, Ronald E. Bogle, National Chair.
Sir.
And in the highest traditions of our nation. I want to thank CPPI for its great support for Guard and Reserve employees. It is a distinct honor and privilege to me to present to you Secretary of Defense Employer Support Freedom Award.
Thank you, sir. Going to Disney World. I never had the athletic skill to be able to say that.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. Thank you. As a reminder, if you have any questions about ESGR or how you can get involved as a volunteer, please don't hesitate to ask me or any one of the other volunteers that are in this room. We are always looking for dedicated volunteers to support employers and the men and women who serve in the Guard and the Reserve. So please come and talk with us. On behalf of the Secretary of Defense and the Florida ESGR State Committee, we are honored and we are humbled by your presence and participation here today. Our deepest thanks and appreciation to each and every one of you for your valuable time and support of the great men and women who serve in the National Guard and Reserve. Now, every celebration needs a cake, right? Thanks to the Casperis, two of our outstanding volunteers from South Florida that fought the traffic, particularly between Wildwood and Ocala to get here. I would like to ask the official party to join us and celebrate this great event by cutting the I always have trouble with that, ma'am. Cut the cake.
Gather around. Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's amazing.
Treacherous. We get close.
Yeah, here we go.
That's great, you guys. Right here. Awesome.
Oh,
Oh my goodness. Awesome, let's cut that cake. Yep. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the Freedom Award ceremony. Please join us in the reception. Thank you very much. All right, thank you. Drive safely. Thank you. Thank you, Sergeant Major. I appreciate it.
There's always a little bit of, you know.
Oh, good. Food smells delicious.
It does, yeah.
Not only successful in getting the Army Reserve flag,
Oh.
and so appreciate his effort.